We're a long way from home. Welcome to the Southy show. Right, we are back today on the Southy and DL football podcast. Welcome everyone. Welcome to you, DL. How are you doing today?
Hello. No bad. Getting along. You know what I mean? Bit sick of lockdown, but aren't we all?
Yeah, it's getting a bit tedious now, but hopefully we'll be out of it soon. What are we going to be talking about today?
So we're going to be talking about the Arsenal today. Obviously, one of my great loves. We're going to be
Yeah,
discussing how in the past
for
15
those of you,
years or so, hasn't? Yeah.
for those of you who don't know, that DL is an Arsenal fan, and a club which must be hard to support a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that it's a bit of a roller coaster. I mean, it's hard to sort of sum up the emotions that you feel as an Arsenal fan because it's just kind of perpetual disappointment, really, with the odd sort of glimmer of hope. But I will get through all this today and how we've got to this situation where we currently are with the Arsenal support.
Yeah, can you remember the very first Arsenal game you ever watched?
Very first Arsenal game I ever watched, it was the first game of the 2009-10 season, I believe, and it was Arsenal versus Everton. It was a convincing 6-goal victory for Arsenal, and I just thought, I'd just seen them play, and I was an impressionable 9-year-old, and I thought, yeah, I like that. I like the way that they go about things. So that was it. From then on, it was Arsenal all the way, for good or for better or for worse. And here we are. It's 11 years and 3 FA Cups later. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you obviously becoming a fan of them. Probably not at the best time.
no, not at the greatest time. But I mean, I have to say, in that sort of era, they
They
were
were good.
better than they are now. Certainly, yeah. They weren't.
Yeah,
Obviously, they weren't replicating the phenomenal success they had 5 or 6 years prior to that, prior to me starting supporting them. But things have certainly soured a lot more from that point to where we are today. And we'll get into that as the episode goes on. The dramatic decline, I guess you could call it, in the past couple of years.
yeah. Well, I've got loads of things written up here on them, and where I'd quite like to start is Paris. Bit of a weird place to start, but Paris 2006, the Champions League final, Arsenal against Barcelona. Now, this, for me, is the turning point where Arsenal go from the Invincibles, the great English side, to really start their slow decline.
Yeah, I mean, it was the final in Paris is really a pivotal moment in Arsenal history. Obviously, it was the club's first ever Champions League final, and a sticking point for Arsenal for a long time in the past had been their failure to kind of have any sort of degree of success in Europe. They'd won the Cup Winners' Cup in 1994. They'd been to a UEFA Cup final, which they lost against Galatasaray on penalties. So it was always felt that even though Arsenal were all pretty good contenders on the domestic front most of the time, they had to really sort of solidify themselves with European pedigree, and what better opportunity to do that than the 2006 Champions League final in Paris. And the run to that final was incredible because Jens Lehmann, the goalkeeper, didn't concede an entire goal the whole campaign. Arsenal became the first English side to beat Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. So there was a lot of records broken along the way, and you would be forgiven
Yeah,
for thinking that Arsenal were heavy favourites going into that final because it was Frank Rijkaard's Barcelona, and even though they were a good team, they weren't what they were a
they're
couple of
not the
years later under
Barcelona.
Pep Guardiola.
Yeah,
No,
they're not that Barcelona.
def- definitely not. So, I mean, the omens were good going into the final, I would have said. But then 18 minutes in, tragedy. Jens Lehmann gets sent off and unfortunately has to be replaced by Poppadom and Manuel Almunia, who's
Oh my
just...
God, Almunia.
It's
One thing I
just...
want to talk. One thing I want to say
Oh, go
about
ahead.
Almunia, right? One thing I want to say about Almunia was, it seemed for me when I was growing up watching football that around this time, every top team had a really good goalkeeper apart from Arsenal. Arsenal had Almunia, Man United had Van der Sar, Chelsea had Cech, Liverpool had Pepe Reina. Almunia just seemed like so out of place.
Yeah, that was after Jens Lehmann left. The goalkeeper position was a massive sticking point, and I think his level got shown like soon after he left Arsenal. Like, yeah, he's a championship standard keeper. So to have him playing like 72 minutes in the most important game of Arsenal's history was just not ideal. But
And
obviously,
he played with 10 men.
yeah, despite having to play with 10 men after Jens Lehmann sending off, Arsenal managed to take the lead. Saul Campbell with a header from a Thierry Henry free kick just before, or 5 or 6 minutes before half time. So, and Arsenal were 13 minutes away from being European champions. Obviously, Barcelona made some tactical changes. They brought in Henrik Larsson, they brought in someone else, I can't remember. And then, obviously, Almunia does the unforgivable, concedes two goals that he's near post, one of which was offside. And I think I think it kind of is a really painful moment looking back on it for Arsenal fans, because had there been VAR or more rigorous refereeing, then maybe Arsenal could have been European champions, but that's all buts and maybes. And an interesting point, the fourth official, his second name's Ovrebo. He overseen the disgraceful 2009 exit of Chelsea from the Champions League at the hands of Barcelona at Stamford Bridge.
It's a disgrace. It's a fucking disgrace.
Yeah, so I don't know if that guy has something against teams from London or whatever it is, but
Or he loves Barca.
Who knows? But I don't know. Obviously, the crushing disappointment of losing that final. And that coincided with leaving Highbury as well, because 05-06 was the final season at Arsenal's historic old ground. So it felt like times were changing, and for them to, if they had won that final, it would have been a really special way to kind of send off the Highbury era. And what better way to usher in a new stadium than with a European Cup? But obviously it wasn't meant to be. And then it rolled on to the 06-07 season.
One thing that I always hear, mainly from my dad, who had this personal belief, I mean, he's not an Arsenal fan, obviously, but he always reckoned that Arsene Wenger should have left after that Champions League final. He reckoned he'd done the Invincibles, he'd gotten them to a European final. Obviously, the team was riding high, but he always felt like he should have left on the biggest high.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Arsene Wenger gave his life to Arsenal, and that is well documented. I mean, Arsene Wenger, there's a story that was floating about. I don't know how much truth there is in it, but apparently Arsene Wenger's wife gave him an ultimatum and said, "Look, it's me at Arsenal," and he chose Arsenal, obviously. And he chose Arsenal, obviously. So, and I think that kind of that point is sort of what makes his downfall even more tragic. Like how committed he was to the club, and how much you knew his heart was in it 100%. And I know managers sometimes say, "Well, first and foremost, I'm a fan of whatever club they manage," but with Arsene Wenger, you could actually believe that he was an Arsenal fan. You could, and obviously, so you could tell that it was hurting him, and he felt as if, because he built the Emirates Stadium bricks and mortar. Basically, he said, "Listen, if we want to kick on," and I believe the clubs that compared themselves to at the time was Bayern Munich, I think, was the model, because they, round about the same sort of time, they were moving into a big glittering new stadium. He's like, right, we want to match their levels. And obviously, it just didn't pan out that way, because the Emirates era is when the decline really, really started to set in. Obviously, that summer after the Champions League final, Dennis Bergkamp left the club. He was 37 at the time, but
Henry.
Still a big loss. Yeah, Henry left this after the first season at the Emirates. So that classic team was falling apart, and Pires was discontinued. When Jens Lehmann got sent off in the Champions League final, Pires was the man who had to come off to bring Almunia on, and obviously that game meant so much to Pires, because Paris is his hometown, playing for Arsenal, lifting the European Cup in his home city. That would have been incredible. So he he left the club, and then obviously Vieira left after 2005. Jens Lehmann left sort of soon after. Ashley Cole left under a storm cloud that summer as well. You know,
Chelsea.
Saul Campbell was getting older. He went on to Portsmouth. So it was just sort of the strategic kind of dismantling of the team, and it was honestly, it was. I mean,
Quite sad.
it is very sad because the Invincibles were obviously such an amazing achievement in football, and I think if the Invincibles team or the Arsenal team of that era were able to have lifted that European Cup, it would have
It would have
totally
been the perfect
changed the way.
culmination.
Yeah, exactly, and it would have totally changed the way that people think about the Invincibles, because nowadays you get people saying, "Oh well, they went invincible, they drew 12 times," and kind of turning their nose up at them. But I think
No other team's done it.
exactly, that's the thing. No matter how good Manchester City were last season, or how good Liverpool are this season, neither of those teams managed to go through all 38 Premiership games without losing. And the 12 draws thing, that just kind of goes to show Arsenal's sort of resilience and Wenger's commitment to this unbeaten run, because he knew he didn't want. And in the games that they drew, like maybe Wenger was thinking, like, I don't want to throw everything at the wall here and just go for a win. I'll take a draw. I'll take a draw if it means preserving our unbeaten run, and it means avoiding stupid mistakes by just bombing forward the whole time. So I think that showed Wenger's sort of more pragmatic side as well. But obviously, like things like the Champions League final and the keeper getting sent off, you can't account for stuff like that.
Like it's not. It's just one of those things that happened. What I really want to talk about today is like the kind of factors that have culminated in Arsenal's downfall. And the first one I want to talk to you about is the rise of the oil-rich clubs, as I'll call them, likes of Chelsea and Manchester City. And I feel like the rise of these clubs has kind of undermined Arsenal's power a wee bit in English football.
It certainly has, and I would agree with you there, because Arsenal historically have been one of the biggest clubs in English football. But I mean, the thing is, being a big club just doesn't carry forward as much as it used to anymore. You know, look at Leeds. Leeds are considered a massive club, languishing in the Championship for the past fucking 17 seasons or whatever it is. So I think it goes to show you that the power of money in football. And obviously, I think Arsenal were a bit rattled by Chelsea and Abramovich in general. Obviously, taking Ashley Cole off of them was an enormous thing.
Was so. I think every team was.
Manchester United as well. Alex Ferguson, has been well documented that Alex Ferguson definitely had to up his game after that. He was considering retiring around about that period, actually. And if it weren't for Fergie's genius being able to propel them to that title in 2006 or 7, maybe things would have been entirely different. But I think every team struggled to match Chelsea's levels at that time.
That's what I mean. Like, because for example, it's almost a case of Chelsea came along and Man United adapted and Arsenal didn't. That's what sort of happened in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, Manchester United had a couple of seasons sort of out of the limelight, but during those seasons they were developing players like Ronaldo, and they were developing players like Rooney, and signing players like Evra and Vidic, and Ferdinand was becoming the player he is, and they signed a good, solid, experienced keeper in Van der Sar, and obviously players like Gary Neville, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, all kind of aged like fine wines anyway, so that made a really solid core of a team that they were developing through those off years, and they knew that team would kick on, and in 2007 they eventually did. Arsenal signed a lot of hotly tipped players during that sort of period. Obviously, Robin van Persie kind of emerged.
Fantastic player.
Robin van Persie kind of came through the ranks. Cesc Fabregas was coming through the ranks at this time. Players like Theo Walcott were signed for Southampton. So you could argue that Arsenal were on a similar trajectory to Man United in that they were developing this good core of players. But obviously they didn't. They just didn't have that killer instinct when it came to the running. And I think that's what killed them.
For me, they didn't have like you said just there. Man United had players like Scholes and Giggs and all that ready for these players to come into the team with, whereas Arsenal didn't really. if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
They didn't have the
Arsenal.
schools or the gigs. They'd all left
Yeah,
Arsenal's schools and gigs.
exactly. Arsenal were becoming increasingly reliant on these players, and as good as all these players turned out, I think that was naive, because they needed that sort of experienced core there, and it was how quickly it shifted from this incredible team that was such a solid unit into a sort of, at times, disjointed squad that you didn't
Yeah.
really know what you were going to get from them. Like, even the first game at the Emirates, at Aston Villa, you would think, right, Arsenal are going to take them on here and going to give the fans a big occasion that they can enjoy for their first game at the new stadium. But it ended in a one each draw. And that sort of inauspicious start that they got off to the Emirates kind of defined the Emirates era.
Uh-huh.
They always for a while they did, just good enough, but not well enough to kind of justify themselves as proper title contenders. But obviously they had some horrendous luck, because, for example, in 2008 they were on a really good trajectory for the title, and then something like
I remember it.
Eduardo breaking his leg in that horrific challenge at Birmingham City, and that kind of, it's things like that. It's the bad luck with Arsenal. It's the what if situations that sort of define it. And afterwards, Wenger came out and he was fuming, and he was saying the player who did it should never play football again and all that. And that kind of goes to show that maybe they lost their heads a wee bit, and they were getting frustrated by having this terrible luck all the time. And then obviously there's a well-known kind of like thought that Arsenal just have horrendous luck with injuries in general. So I
Yeah,
don't think it's
definitely.
I don't think it's all down to bad planning. This would be my summary. I don't think it's all down to bad planning, although that certainly is a part of it. Injuries
Uh-huh.
and strokes of bad luck certainly have a lot to do with it.
Definitely. I mean, between looking at my notes here, between 2000 and after 2005-06 season, when Arsenal didn't win anything that season, but the season before they were also Premier League champions, but they didn't actually win another trophy till 2013-14 when they won the FA Cup. Now that for
Yeah,
a big club is horrendous.
I know, and that followed, that dark cloud of not having won a trophy plagued Arsenal through the early Emirates era. Like, it you know, just not being able to quite get over the line was just, it came to define the club almost. And I
Yeah.
think, but the thing was, like, the players and the fans stuck by Wenger. And I would
Hmm.
say it was only after he'd actually won something in 2014 with the FA Cup, and it was in the sort of year kind of subsequent to that unrest kind of started growing amongst the fan base with Arsene Wenger. So it showed the patience that the Arsenal fans had, and I think it's completely turned the other way now. I think
Yeah.
because of how badly it ended with Wenger, Arsenal fans became incredibly impatient. They want to.
A bit like Manchester United fans, only not in the same way. It ended so well with Ferguson that they think it should just continue like that after
Yeah, well,
Ferguson.
Manchester United fans, the biggest shout of entitled bastards in the world. So I mean, that's like an entirely different situation, because Arsenal were almost used to being to kind of failure, if you know what I mean. Like, it kind of
Yeah.
became like the expectations got lowered. It's different for Man United, because in Sir Alex Ferguson's last season, they won the title. So they expected to kind of continue that form, and then obviously the David Moyes thing and finishing seventh. That was a massive shell shock for them. But Arsenal had grown used to, like, almost accepting these standards, while a lot of the fans did. And it was those fans who wouldn't accept that standard anymore that eventually got Wenger out. And now you look at what happens with Unai Emery after Arsene Wenger left.
Oh,
He
trust me, we'll get to him.
Arsene Wenger was in that job for 22 years, and his successor barely got 2 seasons. So I think that sort of shows you how quickly the Arsenal supports, like, expectation of their managers changed. It went from, we'll stick by this manager with a long-term process, to we want instant success. And I I think that's a sad thing, to be fair. Not that I would have kept Unai Emery, but I just think that's how it is amongst the fan base,
It is
unfortunately.
it is quite hard. The one thing that Arsenal fans will find really hard right now is the fact that they're not title contenders, and probably the worst thing is they're not even now the best club in North London. In this
No,
time,
I mean,
their rivals Tottenham have overtaken them.
yeah, I mean, Tottenham still haven't won anything. I mean, I think it's important to bear that in mind, and this is where
Yeah.
my and an Arsenal fan is going to come out because Spurs have said for so long, oh, we're so much better than Arsenal. But the thing is, they haven't won anything since the League Cup 12 years ago. Arsenal, who are supposedly in this, cataclysmic downfall, and I do agree there has been a definite downward slide in terms of the quality of the football on the pitch. However, in the past 6 years, Arsenal have won 3 FA Cups, which is more than Spurs have won in the 21st century or even the 90s combined, I believe. So that just kind of goes to show you the different levels of expectations.
My
Spurs are
God.
happy. Spurs are happy to finish above Arsenal, but Arsenal, even when they win trophies, it's not good enough. So I think that kind of
My,
goes to show you.
my God, if Spurs had won that Champions League final last year,
Oh,
Arsenal fans would have had a complete utter meltdown.
well, I'll tell you what, if Spurs had won that Champions League final, the dynamic would have completely changed. 100% it would have changed. Because for so long, Arsenal have lorded it over Tottenham, saying that they're the kings of North London. And if Spurs, you can say what you want about them not having won the league since fucking well before man landed on the moon. You can say all that stuff. But if they'd won a Champions League, that would have changed everything. Definitely, because that changed everything when Chelsea won it in 2012 as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
That really put them on a pedestal, because despite all the success they had with Mourinho beforehand, it wasn't until they won the Champions League that they could properly say we are the biggest club in London, and that's the end of it. So I think if Spurs had won it, it would have been extremely damaging to Arsenal. Extremely damaging.
Definitely. When would you say the last time Arsenal were, not during the season, but at the start of the season, when before the teams even play their first games, when would you say the last season Arsenal were considered title contenders?
It's a good question. I mean, the closest they've came to the Premier League title in the last few seasons is the year that Leicester won the title, where they finished second, but they were well out of it. They were well out of it by the end. I would say it's hard to remember, to be honest, because if you look back over like the last sort of 10 years in the Premier League, there's always been an outstanding team at the start of the season.
Yeah.
The past 3 or 4 years has been Manchester City. And then before that, it was Chelsea with a resurgent Mourinho. And then before that, it was Sir Alex Ferguson, obviously. So Arsenal have always kind of been playing second fiddle. I would never say that they've been considered favourites before a season started. Not for 15 years at least, anyway. I wouldn't say.
Which is pretty mental. One thing I want to talk about is Arsenal's transfer policy. For me, for a big club, is really, really strange. I mean, to be a title contender and sell your best players to your biggest rivals for the league title is just completely criminal.
For a while, that was to do with finances and having moved from Highbury to the Emirates. Obviously, a massive investment for the club. So getting cash back into the club's coffers was a big thing for them. So they kind of had to sell players, but that period's kind of lapsed now. And I don't even think it's obviously the selling of big players. You could name easily 10 of them. You've got Nasri, Van Persie, Fabregas. Like the list goes on. Clichy, Bakary Sagna. It's ridiculous the amount of proper great talents they've sold to other clubs. Alexis Sanchez to Manchester United. Obviously, his demise was beautiful to see for Arsenal fans, but he's another prime example. And the Van Persie thing just sort of sums up. He was the top goal scorer He was the top goal scorer in that 2011-12 season, which, don't forget, was a poor season for Arsenal. That
Yeah, they
was
were bad that season.
the 8-2 game at Man United was in that season. I think they lost 6-3 to Manchester City or something as well. It was a poor season.
Yeah.
Anyway, Robin Van Persie miraculously, in a team as bad as that, still manages to finish top of the Golden Boot chart, and he still manages to score the most goals of any player in the Premier League. And Arsenal let them go to historically one of their biggest rivals, Manchester United, for £20 million in the summer. Just put that in context. What other team would do that? What other team would just say, listen, and hand them the league title? Because everyone knew that.
Because it did.
Van Persie,
essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. Van Persie was the most informed striker in the Premier League that season. And in the 2011-12 season, the season before Van Persie went to Manchester United, Man United lost the league on goal difference to Man City. And Sir Alex Ferguson would have said, we are not, by no fucking means, are we letting that happen again. So we're going to go out, we're going to get a goal scorer, and we're going to ensure that that never happens again. And, you know, him and Rooney.
They blitzed the league. They blitzed it.
Yeah, him, Van Persie, Rooney, and then Chicharito Hernandez just behind them. What an unbelievable strike force. Unbelievable. And they swept all comers in that 2012-13 season. And it showed you the Van Persie. Arsenal were left with in 2012. They were, I can't even remember. I think that was the season Lucas Podolski came in. That was the season.
And they signed Podolski.
Yeah, that was the season Lucas Podolski came in. Obviously, both players with great European pedigree, you know. Podolski's greatly admired throughout Europe. He has an excellent left foot, all the rest of it. Giroud, talisman from Montpellier when they won the league by surprise. But again, that goes to show, because at the end of that season, you know, it was between Giroud and Hazard for the two sort of players that were standing out in France at that time. And Arsenal got Giroud and Chelsea got Hazard. If you know what I mean, Hazard went on to win 2 Premier League titles. So it shows you that when it comes to competing for the absolute best talent, Arsenal are miles behind their rivals, miles behind, because people sort of see Arsenal as a bit of a joke. I mean, I hate saying it because that pains me massively as an Arsenal fan, but a lot of people do see Arsenal as a joke. So it's hard. And that theory is international. That's not just limited to the UK, by the way. People all over Europe think that Arsenal are just, oh yeah, well, wait, if we turn up today, we'll beat them, no bother. That is just a general opinion. So it's hard to attract players of a certain calibre when that's the mentality towards the club.
One of the main things that Arsenal did have, though, consistently, was that they were qualifying for the Champions League. Something that clubs at Liverpool weren't doing every season. Arsenal consistently qualified for the Champions League. Even Chelsea fell out of the top 4 a few times. But Arsenal consistently doing it. And I think the season, which season was it? It was the 2016-17 season where they finished 5th outside the top 4 for the first time in God knows how long. I think that was such a huge moment for Arsenal. They didn't have Champions League anymore. And it was just, it was weird not seeing them in it. It was just strange.
But the thing is, Arsenal had been embarrassing in the Champions League the past 6 or 7 years prior to them not being able to qualify for it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it is as kind of unanimous as you make it out to be. Obviously, it was a big thing not being able to qualify for the Champions League, but people thought, you know, at least if we drop down to the Europa League, we might have a good chance of winning it, because Arsenal were just getting embarrassed. Like, they would get to the round of 16, and then obviously they were very unlucky with the draws. I don't know how many fucking times Arsenal drew Bayern Munich in that round of 16, but it was an obscene amount. Drew Barcelona, you know, all these sorts of teams. But even when they didn't draw teams of that calibre, even when in 2015 when they drew Monaco, they still managed to lose at home to Monaco. So it just kind of showed, like, even though they did qualify, and even though they did manage to get in it every season, it's a bit of a red herring. It really does distract from the key point that even though they qualify every year, They never do anything in the tournament, and they haven't done
No.
anything, properly impressive in the tournament since 2006. And
Yeah,
I think,
I'm looking at this
yeah,
on my
and
notes.
obviously it came to a head. What were you going to say? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm looking at my notes here. 2010, from 2010-11 till the last time they were in the Champions League, which was in 2015-16, they didn't get past the round of 16 once.
Yeah, that just sums it up entirely, and obviously it all came to a head in 2017 with a 10-2 drubbing by Bayern Munich, which is just embarrassing. Like it's hard to sum up those emotions because the season prior to that, Arsenal actually managed to beat Bayern Munich, and
They did.
The Bayern thing it was big for Arsenal because they became sort of like their European kind of rivals almost because they played them like so often. It just always seemed like they were getting drawn against them, and
They had some good
to
matches
lose.
though in that time.
They did. I'm not going to say that they got absolutely hammered every time, and there was some high points in general in
The
Arsenal's.
Barcelona game for me always stands out when they beat them at the Emirates.
See, the thing is, they beat them at the Emirates, but then they lost it at the Nou Camp to go out. So
Yeah.
it's just, it's always sort of like there's minor achievements, but they just pale in comparison to what could have been, if you know what I mean. And obviously, to lose 5-1 at the Allianz Arena, then to lose 5-1 again at the Emirates, it's just unforgivable. I mean, obviously
Yeah,
you can understand sort of in the first game because Arsenal got a red card. No, sorry, did they get a red card? I can't remember. Lauren Koscielny came off anyway, and Lauren Koscielny was so integral, and he came off, and the wheels just totally came off, and it was like they weren't even trying. Kieran Gibbs. I mean, Kieran Gibbs is he's a decent player. He
decent.
plays for he plays for West Brom in the Championship, which is it's a good level, but he's not an Arsenal captain.
He's not an Arsenal player. That's what I was going to say, and that was Arsenal's problem.
Yeah,
because they signed players who weren't their quality.
They signed players who didn't really fit the profile either. Because you think of Arsenal and you think of an attract. Well, obviously it wasn't this way in the 1990s with the boring old Arsenal kind of reputation, but
stigma.
But the early years of Wenger, like you think of players like Bergkamp, Henry, Petit. I could go on forever. Like Pires, Lundberg, Vieira. They all had a certain sort of a character, like a kind of swagger about them. It was like, I know I'm one of the best players in the world, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to show that week in, week out. And Arsenal, because they focus so heavily on getting in younger players that they could develop and then sell on as a strategy to sort of pay for the Emirates, that was sort of lost because no longer were they signing these sort of. Well, I'm not. I don't want to say ready-made, like phenomenal players because some of them weren't ready-made. Henry was a bit. Henry's career was sort of faltering when he arrived at Arsenal. Vieira signed him from AC Milan, but he wasn't the massive player we know today. But they all had. They all had the qualities to become superstars. And even though these players that Arsenal brought through the youth ranks were undeniably of a good quality, they didn't have. I don't think some of them had the character to push on. I'll tell you one player who I thought had an absolute. You could not fault him for his character, and you could not fault him for his commitment to Arsenal.
Guess?
Have a guess, aye.
Is it Abu Dhabi?
I do admire Abu Dhabi a lot. I do, but it's not him. I'll give you another go. It is a midfielder, though.
Cesc Fabregas.
Cesc Fabregas. And I'll tell you why. Cesc Fabregas played through a broken leg for Arsenal. He scored a penalty with a broken leg for Arsenal, and he did not want to leave. I think he got his head turned. He got his head turned a bit at the 2010 World Cup. Obviously, he won it with Spain, and there was a lot of Barcelona players in that team. And Barcelona, he came from La Masia, so maybe he did have an inclination to move, but Arsenal did not do what was required to hold on to one of the absolutely, him and Van Persie, the absolute best players. They did not do enough to hold on to them, and eventually the circus just went on and on and on, and it
Yeah.
culminated in Fabregas having a Barcelona shirt put on him as part of the 2010 World Cup celebrations, and I think that was just a sickener for Arsenal.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
it's almost as if they sort of let that happen and they weren't doing enough. And then obviously he went to Barcelona, and he did
He
well at
wasn't
Barcelona,
bad. He wasn't bad.
but by
Let's be
no
fair.
means. Yeah, by no means was he the main man, because he had to compete in a midfield with Busquets, Xavi and Iniesta, potentially the greatest midfield of all time, and he had to compete with that standard,
Yeah.
and
He
that
almost
was
got played
just
as like a
impossible.
false nine as well at Barca.
Yeah, he got played all over the place, and centre mid is his natural position. That's where he plays best. And I
And he's a
think
phenomenal player. He just is.
he's
He's so
unbelievable.
classy.
I've so much admiration and respect for Cesc Fabregas, because I don't think, unlike Samir Nasri and Adebayor and these sort of players that have left and then have kind of rubbished Arsenal afterwards, Cesc Fabregas, he's always an Arsenal man for me, and to see
And he
him
always and he
succeed.
wanted to return.
Yeah,
He
he
wanted to
wanted to
return.
return. He wanted to return, but for some reason, Arsenal decided that they didn't want to have him back, because I think they seen him as sort of damaged goods after his time at Barcelona. I think he struggled with injuries while he was there, and they didn't want to have risk bringing a player like that back. But obviously, he went on and he signed for Chelsea, and he was phenomenal for Chelsea. Seen that 14-15 season where
Oh,
they won the league,
excellent.
where they won the league under Mourinho, and it was him and Matic and Oscar in the midfield. That was an unbelievable trio, and they
He was
played so
fantastic.
well. They played so well, and he got so many assists that season. And then again, in the 16-17 season when they won the league under Conte, when he was playing in the midfield alongside Kante and Matic again,
Yeah,
again,
he's
it just shows you how
brilliant.
much of a class act he was and how much Arsenal missed a trick by not re-signing him. But I mean,
Yeah.
again, this is just one of the millions of things that you regret as an Arsenal fan.
For me, Fabregas, when I was growing up watching the Premier League, all the big teams had their sort of what you felt were like their main one club men in the middle of the park. Man United had Scholes, Liverpool had Gerrard, Chelsea had Lampard, and Arsenal had Fabregas.
Yeah, it just seemed because he was so in love with the club, and he hates Tottenham. Like, he's openly
I
admitted that
know.
he hates Tottenham, like on Sky Sports and everything. And obviously, there was that time where he scored a brace against Tottenham within the space like a minute and a half or whatever, and he relished being the main man at Arsenal. He absolutely loved it. He was a great captain, and it is an absolutely criminal that Arsenal didn't do more to try and hold on to him, because he fit the
Yeah.
profile so well. He was a product of Arsene Wenger's genius, and it was because of Arsene Wenger's development that he became the player he was. And obviously now he's out in Monaco. He's a bit older now. I think he's sort of
Yeah,
mid-30s now, but he's still absolutely a class act. Absolutely a class act.
a fantastic player. Arsenal were filled with players who kind of fell a bit under the radar, which I felt who were classy players. I'm talking about players like Thomas Rosicky and Santi Cazorla. Players who were very, very talented, but really didn't get the credibility they deserved, probably because they were playing for Arsenal, really.
Yeah, I mean, obviously those two players that you mentioned, they are absolutely plagued by injuries as well. And then obviously you
Yeah,
mentioned that Abu Dhabi earlier on, Jack Wilshere, the list just goes on and on and on and on of these players who were tipped to be the next big thing at Arsenal, and it just did not work for them because of injury. I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's down to bad luck, or it's down to the physios, or it's down to being overworked in training or whatever, but it was just something that plagued Arsenal right the way through. And I think if they were able to keep players like Rosicky fit, players like Santi Cazorla fit, they would have had a lot more success. But,
Yeah.
unfortunately not, and they had to sort of shuffle around the pieces to kind of accommodate their injuries, and they brought in inferior. Well, I mean, I don't want to be nasty about players that have played for Arsenal and have tried their best for Arsenal, but inferior players. I'm talking about the Flaminies, the Coquelins, the Kim Kallstroms, Shamak, players like that, whilst talented boys, undoubtedly, were just not up to Arsenal. And obviously, other than that, there was like transfer nightmares of the standard of Andrew Santos, etc., that were just not even worth mentioning, to be perfectly honest.
That's probably a video for another day. Actually, you could probably make a full video on Arsenal's failed transfers.
Yeah, honestly, that their failings in the transfer market is just it's unbelievable, because they had this. This shows that this inability to get deals over the line goes back way further than the era that we would define as them being in decline. It goes way further back than that. Everyone's heard the Ibrahimovic story. I don't do trials and stuff like that. Everybody's heard about that. I hate Ibrahimovic. I think he's one of the most arrogant men in football, and I cannot stand him. But undeniably a great striker, and would have loved him if he was at Arsenal. Of course I would have. And they were that close to getting him. But it just didn't happen. And it was the same. They had Yaya Toure on trial, and Wenger, and Wenger wouldn't sign him because Yaya Toure didn't want to play at centre back. And I think that because Arsenal were so uncompromised in their position, they said, listen, Arsenal's the man. He dictates what's going on. He dictates the transfer policy. He dictates what happens with the stadium. He dictates what happens on the pitch. I wouldn't be surprised if Arsene Wenger was fucking ordering the hot dog rolls and print the programs in his house. That was the level of control that Arsene Wenger had over Arsenal, and because he was so uncompromising and everything had to be in his vision, maybe it became a bit muddled because he was the leading voice, basically, and there was no one sort of there to tell him no, especially after David Dean left, who was the club's chairman, and it was vitally important to the success that Arsenal had. But after that, I think Arsene Wenger had too much control, and that went up right to the end, right to the very end. I remember Arsenal lost to West Bromwich Albion. They lost fairly heavily to West Bromwich Albion at the Hawthorns in his second last season, I believe it was. One of the journalists said to him, why don't, have you never considered having a director of football? He says, I don't know what a director of football does. Do they direct traffic? And that sort of shows the arrogance of him a wee bit, because what Arsene says goes was just, I mean, it's good having a strong character in the head of an organisation, and that goes way beyond football. But I think sometimes, like, people's powers need to be reined in a bit, and other people need to bring their opinions in, and other people need to be able to contribute for the health of their club, just to make it a more sort of vibrant, kind of diverse organisation, instead of just having one man at the top, almost like a dictatorship style thing.
Bringing on to that point about Arsene Wenger, he came under a lot of criticism, obviously, in his last few years. Were you ever in the Wenger out camp? Were you if you were going to the games every week, would you be chanting "We want Wenger out"? Or
I have to say I wouldn't be I have to say I would not be chanting that. I wouldn't be chanting that. Obviously, people are free to their own opinions, and I live in Glasgow. I'm not from London. I don't have that close an affiliation with the club in terms of where I live. So it's different, because these people, Arsenal fans, pay more for their season ticket than any other club in Britain, potentially even Europe. So they expect a certain standard of football. If you go to the cinema and you pay £50 for a ticket for it and the film's shite, you're not going to be happy, are you? And it's a similar sort of thing. Arsenal fans want a good product. They want a good level of football, if you know what I mean. So that was what was challenging, and I think Wenger's arrogance in that regard, he kind of, I don't want to say he took the fans for granted, but it sort of felt as if he thought he was invincible, maybe, and he couldn't understand. Like, after all I've done for the club, I don't. Maybe he didn't get why people were so sort of visceral in their hatred of him towards it. Well, I wouldn't say hatred. That's a bit far, but people were so visceral in their
I'd say
desire
hatred.
to
I'd
get him
say
out.
hatred came out eventually. To be fair,
I
I
would
mean,
say
if you watch some,
ridicule.
if you've seen some old Arsenal fan TV interviews, you would have seen a lot of very, very pissed off. I think it was in the heat of the moment a lot of the time, but yeah, some of the things
Yeah,
that was said were bad.
I would say I was at times I was embarrassed to be watching those Arsenal fan TV videos because obviously I don't want to doubt anyone's fandom that supports Arsenal, and I completely understand the sentiment against them. But to see you hate the man who's
Yeah,
done so much for the club, it just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't make sense to me. And so to answer your question, I know I don't think I could have chanted "We want Wenger out," but towards the end, certainly I thought a change was needed. I definitely thought a change was needed because it was just, I don't know. I was about to make a fucking comparison to like a dictator or something. I've already done that, but I don't want people to think I'm saying like Arsene Wenger's Colonel Gaddafi or anything. I don't want that to be how it comes out. But I think it was sort of like, his hat had fallen off by then, so to speak. Like, people sort of seen under, and they seen a sort of more desperate side of Arsene Wenger, because towards the end it did kind of become desperate a wee bit. Some of those
yeah,
performances were just shocking towards the end, shocking. And I think he, the phrase "he's lost the dressing room" gets bandied about a lot, but I think some of the players they had and some of the egos they had at the club just were too big to cope with having, Arsene Wenger telling them what to do. I think some of those players definitely thought they were bigger than the badge, and
which no
Arsene just
player
didn't.
is.
No, definitely not. And Arsene just didn't command the respect he used to, and it was a combination of those issues that I believe led to Wenger's downfall. But obviously, tactical shortfalls massively, because the inactivity in terms of substitutions was a real killer for him,
Yeah,
because a manager who's alert and switched on can see, right, they can see the direction that the game's going in, and they make a change maybe 55 minutes or so. If things were going really badly for Arsenal, Wenger had a tendency to wait until the 75th minute or the 80th minute. And obviously, it's more glamorous if a player comes on in the last 10 minutes and totally changes the game. And oh my God, what a turnaround, masterstroke from Wenger. But it felt sometimes that he didn't have the foresight to change things, because he was so proud in the way that
yeah,
he was so proud in his own beliefs and the way that he liked to play, and he defended that vigorously, too vigorously, I think. And
yeah, definitely.
his unwillingness to change in game, in the market, and just in general, it was a real problem for Arsenal, because he is
I'll
a
make
very stubborn man.
I'll make a comparison. What he was like for me, watching from the outside, not being an Arsenal fan, he was a bit like a chef who had really good reviews at a restaurant 10 years ago, but his reviews started to sour. But because he had the reviews pinned up on the wall from 10 years ago, he went by those places and didn't change the menu, didn't change the food, and eventually lost all the customers. And that sort of analogy lost the respect in the fans.
I think that is a really kind of excellent comparison, because I think it just felt he never used to gloat about the past achievements. He never used to outwork, the way that Jose Mourinho would, or the way that
Mm-hmm.
like certain other managers would gloat about their past achievements. He would never do that. I believe he had too much respect for himself and his own image to be coming out and just being really ham-fisted about his achievements. But he would.
Yeah.
You could tell that he thought, I'm Arsene Wenger. I don't need to listen to this. I don't need to listen to this shit. I've achieved this. I've achieved that. And he would have thought that in his own head. And I think that director of football comment that I mentioned earlier, that just sort of typified that. That just sort of showed his sort of underlying arrogance. It's like, what are you talking about? I've led this club for 20 years. I don't need other people telling me what to do. And like you say, it went stale. His formula went stale. And his inability to change was, I believe, the biggest factor in his downfall.
Yeah, and change eventually did come. Obviously, Unai Emery gets appointed the manager, and for the start of it's the 2018-19 season. Now, I remember when this was announced, you were pissed. You were not
Yeah.
happy about this.
No, I wasn't happy because I wanted Massimiliano Allegri, and I believe a fair section of the Arsenal support wanted him as well. But to get Emery, obviously, with the 3 Europa Leagues at Sevilla and stuff, there was a certain degree of optimism, and I was glad we didn't get Arteta at that time because I just thought he would not be ready for it at all. Then I'm glad he was able to get more sort of experience under his belt with Pep and stuff before he eventually came to the club. But I wasn't happy with Emery, mainly because he was the man that I didn't want. I wanted the other guy, and we got Emery instead. And it kind of felt as though, because I thought we need to get this right. We absolutely need to get this appointment right, because you've seen what happened with Man United. They've had to pay off massive. Yeah. They've had to pay off massive sums to Moyes, massive sums to Louis van Gaal, massive sums to get rid of Mourinho as well. Not just financially ruinous for those clubs. For that club, obviously Man United have a great deal of money, but it's not a good look to be firing managers every 2 or 3 years after having been such a bastion of consistency. And I feel as though Arsenal are definitely now in danger of falling into that trap. And if Arteta can't get this team going after the coronavirus break, and if he can't push this team into the top 4, then I think the manager merry-go-round will just continue, and they'll just sack him and hire another guy, which is not what I want. I want to see a guy come into Arsenal and build a dynasty, the way that Klopp's doing at Liverpool, the way that Pep's doing at Manchester City. I want to see him come in.
I can do it.
And I feel Lampard will do that at Chelsea as well. Obviously, they've been back massively in the past couple of weeks. I don't know. I like Arteta as a guy. I think he speaks very well. Obviously, anyone would speak better than Unai Emery because the language was a massive stumbling block for him. Yeah. But I think there's still some shortfalls in Arteta, because even though Arsenal went unbeaten for a period after he came in, which was impressive, I still feel as if there's still some problems to root out of the club, and they're big problems. They're not inconsiderable. We managed to beat Charlton 6-0 in a pre-season friendly. Obviously, Charlton languishing towards the bottom of the Championship, so not a great achievement. But then to go on and lose 3-2 to Brentford with a full-strength team is worrying. It's very worrying, because it's not just the fact that we lost, it was the manner of defeat. I've seen the highlights. The defending's terrible. Defending has been Arsenal's Achilles heel for 4 or 5 seasons now. They need to get it sorted. They need to get it sorted. That is the biggest problem that Arteta faces. 100% the biggest problem that he faces. I tell you what, I would get rid of David Luiz. I would get rid of Mustafi. I can't even begin to tell you how painful it has been to watch some of Arsenal's defending at times. Obviously, I was incredibly excited by the signing of Kieran Tierney. I thought that was a great acquisition, because obviously living up in Scotland, I've seen how good Kieran Tierney is firsthand, but he's fallen by the wayside. He's
it's an injury Arsenal. It's an injury Arsenal that's ruined him.
When he's appeared for Arsenal, and he has appeared a couple of times in the Europa League, a couple of times in the Premiership, he's looked good. He has looked really good. But Sead, even Sead Kolasinac, he was good in his first season, but my God, he cannot defend to save his life.
No.
Like he's a big, strong guy. You know, he has a good turn of pace on him, but he cannot defend, and that's the problem. I think because defending is such a big problem for Arsenal. I think they've let it go to their heads. I think they've let it go to their heads massively, and they think right, and they're just overthinking it. They're overcomplicating it. You know, defending's the easiest thing to coach. You can coach any old group of idiots how to, pack the box, make sure that they don't score. But because Arsenal are overthinking it so much, and they're making it far too complicated for themselves, I think that's just the problem, and it goes to show. Obviously, the confusion that was created by Unai Emery was a big, big, big problem for him, because oftentimes, he would name a starting 11, and it was just baffling. The fans couldn't follow it. The fans couldn't see logic in it. And I don't think he truly believed in what he was doing towards the end of his Arsenal reign. And I felt very sorry for him, because obviously in press conferences and stuff, his English was very poor. And I think, I think the tabloid press and the social media just jumped on that so much. And I think that really got to him. I think that really hurt him.
He seemed a nice guy, which I felt bad about.
Yeah, he did. He seemed like a very nice guy who was trying his best with the language, but it wasn't really happening for him, and I felt very sorry for him. I think that kind of got to him a little bit, unfortunately. But obviously, you can't blame the manager's inability to speak English entirely on the downfall of the football club.
No, definitely not. I mean, really, what summed up his time for me was that Europa League final against Chelsea. Arsenal were just awful that day. Like they were. And it's a European final, and you turn up and play like that was just unbelievable. Like watching it.
I wouldn't use the word "turn up." To be fair, it was just the thing was, because you have to look at Chelsea going into that final. The Chelsea fans hate Maurizio Sarri. They absolutely hate him, because he did not fit the profile of what they say is a Chelsea man. High-profile Chelsea fans on the internet, like Rory, that goes on True Geordie's podcast, he said, the Chelsea fans hate this guy. We cannot stand this guy. We want him out of the club. It was the same thing with Rafa Benitez. If the Chelsea fans don't like it, they make it well known. So the world knew that the Chelsea fans were against Sarri, and yet even under those intense speculation, and obviously the thing with Kepa not refusing to get subbed off in the League Cup final, things like that, it showed real discontent in the club. And even then, Chelsea were able to turn up to that final, cool, calm, composed, and Arsenal never looked in it.
No.
Obviously they got into half time and it was 0-0, but then 3 goals in quick succession, Giroud scoring one of them. A player that Arsenal let go to Chelsea, scoring against them in a European final, it was not a good thing to be watching at all. And Alex Iwobi managed to get a goal back for Arsenal, but it was just a lost cause. An absolutely disgraceful performance. Yeah, and I'll tell you what as well, the run into that final, Arsenal managed to beat Napoli, which nobody expected them to do. And they also managed to get a very convincing win at the Mestalla, home of Valencia, which is a very intimidating place to go in the semi-final. So their running was good. The omens looked good. And Chelsea just managed to squeak into that final, beating Eintracht Frankfurt on penalties at the bridge. So going into that, based on form...
I thought Arsenal were going to win. I genuinely thought they were going to win it.
And don't forget, Arsenal managed to actually beat Chelsea in a final a couple of years prior to that in the FA Cup final. So it wasn't as if... And that was a much better Chelsea team. A much, much better Chelsea team that they managed to beat in that FA Cup final. Those were Premier League champions that they managed to beat in that final. This Chelsea team, well, like 6th or 7th at this point, I think. Obviously massive discontent with the manager. And it was just the most disgraceful performance ever. And there's a lot of Arsenal fans that think he should have gone then. But it was combined with the fact that in the month of April, they had such an easy run-in to the top 4. All they had to do was string a couple of results together. But Emery basically
Once
played the
again,
reserves. Emery basically played the reserves in a game against Crystal Palace. And that just set the precedent. Just from there on, it showed this guy's like, does he know like how important these matches are in terms of the very future of Arsenal Football Club? And he was just, it seemed like he wasn't taking it seriously because, you know, losing to Crystal Palace and only managing to accumulate 1 point across 4 games in April, totally capitulating in the race for the top 4, and then bottling the Europa League final. A lot of fans said he should have gone then because he just totally miscalculated that final half, that final wee part of the season.
Looking into the future at Arsenal, what worries me is the fact that it's become a lot harder to even just finish in the top 4. Arsenal currently sitting 9th. There's new teams coming in now. It's not just Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea. You have teams like Leicester, Wolves, potentially Newcastle get taken over.
Yeah, up-and-coming teams that Arsenal will again have to compete with. I mean, for a long time, Arsenal just took their top 4 status for granted. And, Arsenal were ridiculed for being happy finishing 4th. I would be delighted to finish 4th now. Absolutely ecstatic to manage to finish 4th and get back in the Champions League. But then again, I wouldn't know if I want to finish in the Champions League because I think that squad would just embarrass the club on a European front. There's so many, obviously when Arsenal are my team, and I try to like all the players that play for my team. I don't try to harbour any bad feelings against any of them. But I look at players like Granit Xhaka and players like David Luiz, and I just think you can't, Granit Xhaka especially, I just think, what is the point in you being here? Obviously the fans gave him a great deal of stick and he reacted to it, but he shouldn't. He's Arsenal captain. He should know to take that on the chin. And I think Mesut Ozil, for as much as he gives it, how much he loves the Gunners on Instagram, it's just not good enough.
Doesn't show it in the pitch.
From half of them. It's just not good enough from half of them. And honestly, as soon as Arsenal concede a goal, the heads go down, and that's the problem. They don't have any fighting spirit to get back into game. But Arsenal do have an excellent crop of young players coming through. That cannot be denied. They have Saka. They have Saka at left back / left mid, a great talent. They have Gabriel Martinelli. What a steal he was! Only 6 million or something. They signed him from Brazil. He's turned out to be an excellent acquisition. Bangs them in for fun.
Young Kieran Tierney as well, still.
Young Kieran Tierney, and then you've got 2 other academy boys, and Reece Nelson, Eddie Nketiah. So the future is Joe Willock as well. I forgot to mention Joe Willock. So that's 6 or 7 players that could form the backbone of an incredibly successful Arsenal team, on top of the great players that they already have. Your Lacazettes and your Aubameyangs, and Pepe's a great talent as well. People forget.
A good player. Hector Bellerin I've always rated as well.
I've rated Hector Bellerin as well. I feel like, again, he could improve in certain defensive areas, but I think he is a really, really great talent. And I actually admire Leno. In between the sticks, he's came in for a lot of criticism, but I think he's an excellent goalkeeper. So, the foundations are there. I just think Arsenal need to flush out this deadwood from the club, and they have done for a while. These ageing players who you can just tell their heart isn't necessarily in it. Centre-back's a massive problem area for me.
Definitely.
A massive
problem area. It's the spine of the team it's very poor for Arsenal right now. Centre-back and centre-mid, like a holding midfielder.
In the transfer market, I would do my absolute utmost to try and get Dani Ceballos on a permanent contract from Real Madrid. I've heard it's going to cost as much as 45 million, but I would pay that. I would definitely pay that because I see him as a guy who can do his defensive duties, but he's also got a great range of passing. He can an assist. He's not quite got that deadly finish, but I can see him as being a long-term replacement for Ozil, so I would get him down on a contract. Rob
Yeah.
Holding is a player that I greatly admire at centre-back. He's a really exciting young talent. Arsene Wenger signed him from Bolton for £2 million. £2 million. You know, he like if he was signed from say an Everton or a Leicester, it would be 50 million. But that just goes to show, you know, even towards the end, Arsene Wenger still had that in him. He still had that ability to make a great signing. But I think the emphasis should be placed on Rob Holding. It's time for him to step up and become the main man in that defence, because honestly, I just feel, looking at players like Mustafi and David Luiz,
They're just not good enough.
they're not good enough. You know, there's a video of Arsenal in Emery's final Premier League game against Southampton. You know, I think it's Shane Long, he takes a throw in. It was a disputed throw in. You know, it was unclear whether Southampton should have actually been awarded it. But he takes it anyway, and David Luiz is shrugging his shoulders, looking at the referee, instead of actually focusing on what's going on, and he just lets the Southampton player run in and score.
The first thing you're taught as a footballer is to play to the whistle. Unless that whistle blows, you continue to play.
Yeah, exactly. And David Luiz threw that golden rule just out the window. He was good for Chelsea in their 16-17 title winning campaign. But other than that, and obviously he's won the Champions League with Chelsea as well, but how that man still commands such massive transfer fees is totally beyond me. It's totally beyond me, because he was instrumental in that 7-1 collapse of Brazil against Germany, and that was
totally agree.
That was indicative of his mentality. That showed how easily he will. Like, people like him because he's like a sort of good personality. I don't want to like completely destroy his character or whatever, but you know, I think he is very prone to just chucking the towel in. I think it's too easy for a lot of these Arsenal players to just chuck the towel in, unfortunately.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, looking into the future, where would you even see Arsenal now in 10 years' time? And 10 years is a long time in football. I hope to see them back on top. I'm not an Arsenal fan, as I've stated, but Arsenal are one of those clubs I feel like should be at the top of English football, competing with the big boys. But they are one of the big boys, but should be up the top.
You wouldn't know they were one of the big boys now, though, would you? That's the thing. And I've got quite impassioned on this podcast, and rightfully so. I think, but you know, 10 years is a long way down the line. But I think, I mean, you look at the backroom staff; it's changing right now. You know, they brought in Edu, who's obviously an ex-player at Arsenal, done very well at Arsenal, and invincible and all the rest of it. So he's in as the director of football. They had a guy called Sven Mislintat, and who was coordinating all the transfers. He was a greatly admired character. He still is a greatly admired character. Him and Monchi, the guy that worked wonders at Sevilla, the two of them are greatly admired on the European stage as football men, and Arsenal let him go over a disagreement that he had with the board. Ivan Gazidis, the man that brought Emery in, left for AC Milan only a matter of months after bringing Emery in. There needs to be consistency in the boardroom. Chips Keswick, the Arsenal chairman, has just left. So there's an opportunity to sort of bed in football people into the Arsenal structure. This is a big problem for Man United as well. The Man United fans are very upset that Ed Woodward is allowed to have such intimate control over football and affairs at Manchester United, because at the end of the day, the guy's a banker, right? That's banker with a B, not with a W. The guy's a banker, right? Football is not his forte at the end of the day. And I think the importance of having good football minds at a club cannot be understated. And I think now that the Arsenal chairman's left, they have the opportunity to bring in another man. I'm not really sure. I couldn't really suggest a name, but if they were to bring in a man that properly cared about Arsenal, properly cared about getting the owners, you know, obviously Stan Kroenke's out in America, it's not Arsenal anti primary concern, but if they get a chairman in that's able to to get the owners to buy into his philosophy and then create a club from the top down that believes in it. I think Arsenal have a good young coach. They have good young players. Edu I admire as the sort of director of football role. I think it could be successful for Arsenal, but the owners are a big problem, and the owners' attitude towards the club is a big problem.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I hope that, like I said, I hope Arsenal do eventually turn it around. You've obviously been very passionate in this podcast. It means Arsenal means a lot to you. Obviously, I mean, who knows? Who knows where it's going to end up? Who knows? I mean, for all we know, they could be a mid-table club in 10 years. They could be top English football again in 10 years. It's generally one of those ones where we don't have the foresight into seeing how this mental world will
You
pan
can't
out.
you can't predict it, but I would say that Liverpool are in the best position to create like a dynasty over English football in the next coming years. And I think that Man United are starting to get their act together now.
Yeah,
I have to admit I was saying, why did they hire Solskjaer in the first place? But he's starting to sort of prove his worth now, and bringing in players like Bruno Fernandes is a really smart acquisition for them. So Man United will be on the up. Chelsea obviously investing so much in their squad and players like Werner and Ziyech, and obviously they've got great young players coming through as well,
yeah,
like Billy Gilmore, etc. So they are going to be a force to be reckoned with, and obviously Man City, absolute, and they've proved themselves as an institution of English football over the past 4 or 5 years. Liverpool, and then like you mentioned before, Wolves, Leicester, and Newcastle getting bought over. So it's only going to get harder for Arsenal. It's only going to get harder, and they need a lot of changes need to be made. Basically, I think we could do an entirely different podcast on what needs to change at Arsenal.
yeah, definitely. But this was what really went wrong with Arsenal and how it's ended up like this. Thank you very much, DL, for joining us again, and thank you for
No bother.
listening to this podcast. Uh,
Right.
give us your thoughts on Arsenal in the comments below. Sorry, were you going to say something there, DL?
No, I was just going to say apologies for getting so impassioned there. I mean, I've raised my own blood pressure, and I'm sure I might have raised some of the listeners' blood pressure on my fucking impassioned
Nah,
rants.
no,
But
I'm sure a lot of people would agree with you.
yeah, well,
I'm sure a lot
hopefully.
of Arsenal fans would agree with your points. Anyway, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Southy Show. Thank you very much for listening. From me and DL, it's see you later for now.
See you later.